Jesus is betrayed. Jesus had a good friend named Peter who was there when Jesus healed people and made miracles happen. Jesus liked Peter so much, he gave Peter the nickname the Rock. Jesus had another friend named Judas. Jesus, Peter, Judas, and the other disciples spent lots of time together. They were all together when Jesus told them that his life had to end. It was a sad and hard time for Jesus and his friends. Jesus felt so sad that he went to a quiet place in a garden and prayed. "Please, God," Jesus prayed, "make me strong. Help me trust you." Jesus asked the disciples to come to the garden and stay awake while he prayed, but they fell asleep.
"Wake up, wake up, wake up," Jesus told the disciples 3 times. When Jesus finished praying, it was time for them to go and face hard things. Even though Jesus had many friends, he had some bad enemies too. Some people were scared that Jesus would change the world too much with love. Judas got scared too. He let Jesus down. Judas told some of Jesus' enemies where he was. When soldiers came to the garden, Judas kissed Jesus on the cheek to show them who they were looking for. The soldiers took Jesus away. Judas and Peter ran away and hid. They were so scared.
Later, Peter waited outside the place where Jesus was on trial. A girl saw Peter and said, "He's a friend of Jesus. He's in trouble too." Peter wanted to help his friend Jesus, but he was scared, so he pretended he didn't know Jesus. "I don't know him. I don't know him. I don't know him," Peter said. His lie made him feel even worse inside. Peter ran away again. He cried and cried. Peter felt so sad for Jesus. Peter felt very, very sorry. But Jesus knew that Peter loved him. Jesus knew that Peter was his friend. That's why he had given Peter such a special job. The Rock became a strong leader in the church. He told many, many people about his best friend, Jesus. "I know him. I know him. I know him," Peter told everyone. And that was the truth.
Christ the King. The priests were mad at Jesus and wanted to get rid of him. "What will happen to us if the people follow Jesus?" they grumbled. So they made a plan. "Let's take Jesus to the governor, Pontius Pilate. He can get rid of Jesus." When Pontius Pilate saw Jesus, he asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus didn't answer. Pilate thought kings ruled over countries and people. Jesus knew that his power was about loving God. Jesus knew Jesus' kingdom was not the same. Pilate was frustrated. Some people wanted to kill Jesus, but Pilate didn't think Jesus had done anything wrong. Pilate didn't want any trouble, so he handed Jesus over to the people. The priest smiled. Soon Jesus would be gone. Jesus knew that he would die, but that wouldn't be the end of the story. Jesus knew God's plan too.
The day Jesus died. It was a very sad day when Jesus died. The soldiers who had arrested Jesus teased him for pretending to be a king. They took his clothes and put a king's purple cloak on him. They made a crown of vines with sharp thorns and put it on Jesus' head. Ouch! The soldiers made Jesus carry a heavy wooden cross. The cross was too heavy for him. Jesus fell and skinned his knees, and the cross tumbled to the ground. A man in the crowd carried the cross the rest of the way.
The soldiers nailed Jesus' hands and feet to the cross. They raised Jesus' cross up on a hill between 2 other men. The other men were thieves, and they were being crucified too. One of the men was angry with Jesus. "If you are a powerful king, can't you save yourself? Why don't you save us too?" The man spat at Jesus. But the other thief believed in Jesus. He shouted back, "Don't you know who this is? This is God's Son. He hasn't done anything wrong. We are being punished for our mistakes, but Jesus shouldn't be here." The man turned to Jesus and asked, "Will you take me to heaven with you?" Jesus looked at the man and loved him. Jesus told him, "Yes, today we will be in heaven together."
After a while, the world grew very dark, as if a terrible thunderstorm was coming. It was as if all of creation was crying because Jesus was about to die. Jesus was feeling all alone and prayed to see if God was still there. Of course, God never left Jesus. God was with him the whole time. Jesus looked at the crowd. He was so sad that people didn't believe that he was God's son. He asked God to forgive them for killing him. The soldiers offered him some sour wine, but he didn't want to drink it. He was ready to die. Finally, Jesus had fought for long enough. He said, "God, the work you gave me to do here is finished." He breathed a final, long, slow breath, and then he died.
Once there were 3 young trees growing on a hilltop, dreaming of what they might become.
And the first tree said,
"I'll be a chance with a silver rock in the house of a
And the second tree said,
I'll be the mast of a sailing ship at the front of a mighty fleet. The royal flag above my head, the deck beneath my feet. With wind and sail, I'll pull the boat as smooth as angels' flight. The king himself will sleep on board through the roughest night. Three trees high on a hill stand above the humble bay. Three trees high on a hill, dreaming what they'll be one day.
And the third tree said,
I will grow straight and tall. I will rise above them all. Branches lifted as in prayer. All will look to heaven when they see me pointing there. I will grow straight and tall. I will rise above them all. Branches lifted as in prayer. Look to heaven when they see me pointing there. Three trees high on a hill stand above the humble bay. Three trees high on a hill, dreaming what they'll be one day. Dreaming what they'll be one day.
Years passed. Seasons came and went. And then one day, a group of people came up the hill carrying axes and saws. They cut down the first tree.
With a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a yeah! With a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop. Come on!
They cut down the second tree.
With a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a yeah! Yeah! Swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop. Stand clear!
And sadly, they cut down the third tree.
With a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a yeah! Yeah! Swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop. Look out! Swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a yeah! Yeah! Swing and a chop and a swing and a chop and a swing and a chop. Till the first tree fell. Stop and yeah! Tap for, turn your souls and say tree fell. Drop, 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 drop. Yeah! Drop, 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 drop. Third tree fell.
The first tree was carried to a carpenter's shop.
Trim the branches, strip the bark, cut and shave and nail the sand, building with the best tree in the land. Trim the branches, strip the bark, cut and shave and nail the sand, till at last the work is done. It must be grand. But it's not a chest with a silver lock within a Now you can only pray and wait to see what God has planned.
The second tree was carried to a dockyard.
Trim the branches, strip the bark, cut and shave and nail a sand, fill in with the best tree in the land. Trim the branches, strip the bark, cut and shave and nail the sand, till at last the work is done. It must be grand. But it's not the mast of a sailing ship the busy workers made. It's a bench on a rugged fishing boat along a shallow lake. I always hoped I'd be something great, shaped by a master's hand. Now you can only pray and wait to see what God has planned.
And as for the third tree,
Trim the branches, strip the bark, cut and chisel, carve and plane, till at last the form appears, emerging from the hay. But it's not a tall or stately tree that points the way to God. It's a strap laid aside in the lumberyard, for the wood is flawed. I always hoped to be something great, shaped by a master's hand. Now you can only pray and wait to see what God has planned.
More years passed. Then one day, into the barn, where the first tree was now a feed box for animals, came a young man and a young woman. And deep in the night of a winter's day, in the quiet of the barn where the first tree lay, the man and the woman found a place in the light, and the woman had her firstborn child that night.
Diamond bright, glory, glory, glory. Ah, precious light, the child who was born that night. She wrapped him warm and she laid him down, where sin was all in the box she found, and the dream of the tree came true. And the dream of the tree came true. Held in the arms of sacrifice, the treasure beyond all price. Ah, diamond bright, glory, glory, glory. Ah, precious light, the child who was born, the child who was born, the treasure beyond all price.
More years passed. And then one day, into the boat, where a second tree was now a wooden bench, there stepped a young teacher. And lay in the heat of a summer's day, in the back of the boat where a second tree lay, a place where the waves rolled cold and deep, the man on the bench fell fast asleep.
And what of the third tree? Well, one day, soldiers found that tree and laid it across the back of an innocent man who struggled to the top of a tall hill.